Welcome back to the Torque Test channel. You know, testing impact drivers around here a lot of the time seems pretty silly. 200 plus foot-pounds from a little quarter-inch hex, call it. But if GM comes out with a new trim Corvette with bolder claims, automotive journalists are probably going to test those claims, even though your average Joe might not get onto the freeway any much quicker with it most of the time. Today is not that. Compact impact drivers. We're talking 12, maybe 16 volts. These are the hot hatches of the tool world and the shallow end of the torque pool when it comes to impacts, which means sometimes they just don't have all the beans to finish the job while others might. So today we're going to try and figure out how much coin that takes to get into that arena of performance that's close enough to the big names to do the job but friendlier on your wallet, or find out if the stuff at the top really is on another level when it comes to both torque and driving speed. From the most bargain brushed Milwaukee of days past to Amazon brushed and Amazon brushless tiny modern options to SKIL, and finally Milwaukee's latest M12 fuel. Let's dive in, starting out with the Milwaukee 2462 as a decent baseline, a place to start. These are also sometimes found for crazy cheap if you want a simple hip shooter to have around, but we'll be comparing it as a kit price today because the majority of these we'll be looking at come in kit only, which we put together for as low as 70 bucks on this guy. It's not short by any modern approximation compared to the recent stuff, but let's see how it does. And to do that, we're going to need a competitor, which in order of price from here on out is this first, the WORKPRO. We paid $57 for this 12 volt impact driver that comes in a kit with a single battery. This one has a very similar length to the M12 here, thanks to also being brushed. Not something it's advertising, but these days, if it doesn't say brushless, it's a good bet that it is brushed. And coming along with that, the song of its brushed people. Let's see how it stacks up against the M12 2462, jumping straight into our 10-second forward test. These make too little torque to be messing about with 5-second tests, we feel. "42 foot-pounds, under 55 foot-pounds. Well, we have a baseline now, and the WORKPRO is under that. 55 foot-pounds, not too shabby from this model, I feel. It is using a 2.5 amp hour high output battery. One of the benefits of buying a brand is it having a large catalog. Moving on to a tiny little brushless impact driver by the name of SeeSii, a brand we probably purchase too often because sometimes they're good and sometimes they aren't. Either way, fun to watch, and we don't know until we buy one. This one we bought for $58 as a kit, $1 more than the last model, and it comes with 2 batteries, which I didn't even realize. What's a bit new to me about this tool is that it's 16 volt, which means it's taking 4 18650 cells inside, which also means it has a bit of a bulbous handle. I don't find it that uncomfortable because it tapers at the top quite a lot, but some people say the M12 handle is too thick, which I've never felt, so if you're one of those folks, then this is even a bit extra sprinkled on top and may not be your cup of tea. Let's see how it does though. 2 amp hour battery, but at 16 volt, here it is. "65 foot-pounds, pretty good. Expect to see some advancement from brushed to brushless, but we were also shopping for some of the smallest tools we could find for this compact driver episode, which also led us to this $70 kit by Nawin, another 16 volt 4-cell tiny impact driver that looks a lot like the last one, but in red. Different call it, different battery connections, some injection molding differences on the body, but otherwise button modes, power level display, length included, a lot of the same, which both come in a hair shorter than the latest M12. Let's see if those extra few dollars make for a difference. "56, matching the SeeSii for much of the run, but falling off a little when things are more tightened and ultimately more like the brushed M12 here. Okay, and next, only going up $9 in price to $79 as a kit, we have a name brand offering in the SKIL, their latest 12 volt brushless impact driver, and with SKIL, we're more often impressed with their 12 volt tools than even their 20 volt ones, so have been waiting to pick up one of these. It's got a ring light out front, which is always cool on these models they're releasing. It includes a 2 amp hour battery like the others, except it's going to work on a whole host of other SKIL tools as well, and somehow comes in shorter than the latest M12, well, shortest on the day, but does have the most traditional battery at a right angle sort of design versus the ones in the handle that we've been looking at. We're going to address that in a second, but for now, let's see how she rips. "107 foot-pounds, yeah, a bit in a league of its own there. So let's add something more into its league, the M12-3453, Milwaukee's latest. The cheapest we could put together a kit for this was $140 at the time of filming, and for the most part that's twice the price of the rest of these options. But while not a budget compact driver by any means, does offer a good yardstick to compare to. Maybe the skill is much higher than the rest of these, but Milwaukee is in another league on top of that. Let's see. "94 foot-pounds, that new skill is pretty good it seems. And that's with a 2.5 high output. But this skill is bringing a bit of a right angle flavor compared to the rest of the tools we're showing today in a compact comparison. So given Milwaukee has a large offering that we can include, we're also going to include in our dyno test the 5 amp hour high output battery for the M12. This offers the most similar shape and size comparison we feel, though admittedly now around 2.5 times the price, but we're mainly after a good measuring stick here, not equal price with this particular Milwaukee. "109 foot-pounds with a lot of gains on the curve as well. We measure this hitting a full 300 IPM faster on tight stuff than the last battery. Cool to see, and cementing the skill as a top option. Now let's head over to reverse with the WORKPRO taking on the long-standing M12 again. The WORKPRO, not a reverse or forward favoring tool, but sort of a budget model, not shining anywhere too brightly from what we can tell. The M12 is going to top it here again with just 47 foot-pounds. When it comes to the teal and red twins here, the 4-cell thick handle boys, the SeeSii seems satisfied scoring superior stats and takes home the W at the end with 66 over 55 foot-pounds here, both tools performing very similar in forward and reverse. We think one of the differences between these two models might be batteries, the SeeSii's pack weighing in more, which is often a good sign when it comes to legit batteries, and the kit comes with 2 of them, so for being at a lower price, not bad. Next up is the skill, trying to continue that next level performance. Here it is. "91 foot-pounds. Both the skill and the M12 seem to prefer forward, as you'll see here. Very similar curves, very similar peak figures. The M12 gets up to 93 foot-pounds here. It made not a whole lot different with a 2.5 amp hour high output in this reverse either, 87 foot-pounds. Alright, and with the torque measured here, we have not just one, but 2 ranking tabs for you folks with our lifetime of rankings now, as we head over to driving speed. Now that we're going to have more than 1 episode worth of data on driving speed, this will get added too. We drive a 1/2-inch nylon lock nut until this 8-inch deep socket spins free. It's a task that requires some level of constant torque and benefits from high RPM and high IPM. When it comes to the WORKPRO versus M12, you might need a water break in between though. This type of performance, well, it can work. It does have enough torque to do many things, let's be honest, but those things might just take a bit longer. Long enough to watch the pretty sparks come out of the brush motors and enjoy the fragrance of those brushes wearing down. The M12 continuing its dominance over a model many years its junior, with a patience testing 35 seconds or so, to the WORKPRO's much later finishing 44.2 seconds. Eesh. Both the SeeSii and Nawin spin and hit a lot faster and have higher torque, and that's all fit into a much smaller tool too. We're talking going from 2000 to 2600 RPM of the last 2 models you were just seeing to 3600 with the Nawin and 3400 from the SeeSii here. But the SeeSii is able to make those hits count for more, as we saw with the torque test, and that makes the difference here as well, finishing the test in 20.13 seconds to the Nawin's very close behind, 21.77. Next up is the skill, and to our surprise, This one's both hitting slower and spinning slower than the last two. We measured 2880 RPM. A brand might aim for more torque or more speed, depending on how they spec out the hammer and spring inside, as we learned with the latest DeWalt DCF860 we recently tested. And in this one's case, more torque focused it seems, though not slow in this company, 21.9 seconds. And this is the sort of thing where you get what you're paying for at the top prices. You get to have your cake and eat it too, both decent and high levels of torque for a compact tool like this, and in speed, 4000 IPM and 3640 RPM as we measured it, makes for driving this task in just 16.4 seconds. Sure, that's much slower than its M18 counterpart, who finished this in around 5 seconds with similar speed specs, so torque does seem to factor even in this. But in this crowd, it's good enough to top the 12 to 16 volt compacts. 6th overall, with the rest of today's looking like this. And this is how that will be scored. 50 points is full marks for the top finisher, and the rest get a percentage of those points based on how they compare to that. If you're taking twice as long to finish the test, you get half the points, and everywhere further away and in between. Torque runs are simple. We divided these by 2. Then for performance by inch, by your guys' request, we're going to not just be looking at torque here, but also impact driving speed. This is a sum of their torque and driving speed scores divided by their length. That's 11.7 points, 9.5, 21.6, 19, 28.3, and 30.5. Then as a function of their performance and price, it's not really value due to Amazon brands versus non-Amazon brands after all. This is a total though of everything we've scored versus its price here. 12.4 with an equal 12.4 here. Even this old tool comparing well at a higher price kit. 22.2, 16.1, 21, and 13. That totals 100, 82.9, 150.8, 129.1, 187.3, and 195.5, placing the latest M12 in first, as we expected, and the SKIL much closer in second than we would have guessed at this price. Since this is a budget compact driver episode by the numbers, this all says that the SeeSii is in the lead here in performance per dollar for a compact. If you want the highest performance overall in this budget category, that I think goes to the SKIL hands down. Best lighting as well, and it has other battery sizes too if you want to not knock it for its shape and just try to top everything here. Look, testing impact drivers for peak beans can be silly, and the fact that we can break adapters is proof enough. On this end of things, however, where price meets small form factor, you might need every extra foot-pound you can muster at times. This WORKPRO, for example, not always happy to finish the job even with a half pre-piloted hole here, but in the 60 to 70 foot-pounds range, the SeeSii brings enough to the table, I feel, to do most reasonable jobs you'd pick it up to do, including no pilot holes needed many times. So is it going to be enough for you or a family member? You can make that call. Happy to be able to provide a list here that at least sorts these in a way where you can spot those performance gaps versus price and determine that for yourself. We make episodes at least every Friday. Click some stuff below for the algorithm if you feel like it, and thanks for watching.